Sarah Chun wiped the sweat from her forehead as she adjusted the plasma torch settings one more time. The mining station's environmental systems had been acting up for 3 days straight, and if she couldn't get the air recyclers back online soon, the entire crew of 200 would be breathing recycled carbon dioxide within the week. "Come on, you stubborn piece of junk," she muttered, crawling deeper into the maintenance shaft. The station orbited Kepler 442b, a planet rich in rare Earth minerals that the Galactic Trade Federation desperately needed. Sarah had been the chief engineer here for 2 years, ever since graduating from Earth's Advanced Engineering Academy. The plasma torch sparked to life, casting blue light across the cramped space. She carefully began welding the cracked coolant line, her movements precise despite the awkward position. Engineering had always come naturally to her. While other kids played games, Sarah took apart household appliances to see how they worked. Her parents thought she was just being destructive until they found her detailed diagrams explaining how to improve each device. A sudden vibration shook the entire station. Sarah's torch slipped, nearly burning through her protective glove. The lights flickered, then went out completely. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in red. What the hell was that? Sarah grabbed her communicator. "Control, this is Chun. Report." Captain Morrison's voice crackled through the static. "Sarah, we need you on the observation deck immediately. We've got a situation." Sarah quickly shut down her equipment and crawled out of the maintenance shaft. She'd been working for 14 hours straight, but the urgency in Morrison's voice told her the repairs would have to wait. She jogged through the corridors, passing worried crew members who whispered among themselves. The observation deck offered a stunning view of Kepler 442b below. The planet's surface was mostly desert, broken by massive mountain ranges and deep canyons. 3 moons hung in the purple sky, their surfaces scarred by countless asteroid impacts. But today, something else caught Sarah's attention. A massive creature was falling through the atmosphere, its body trailing smoke and fire. Even from orbit, Sarah could see it was enormous, easily the size of a battleship. Leathery wings flapped weakly as it struggled to control its descent. "Is that what I think it is?" Sarah pressed her face against the reinforced glass. Dr. Martinez, the station's xenobiologist, nodded grimly. "A draconian elder. They're one of the most ancient species in the galaxy. This one appears to be injured." Sarah had heard stories about the draconians during her academy days. They were older than humanity by millions of years, possessing technology that bordered on magic. Most species in the galaxy treated them with a mixture of respect and fear. They rarely interacted with younger races, preferring to keep to themselves in the Outer Rim territories. "Where's it heading?" Sarah asked. Captain Morrison pointed to a spot on the planet's surface where a dust cloud was forming. Crash site is approximately 50 kilometers from the mining complex. Long-range sensors show massive energy readings from the impact zone. Sarah watched in horror as the creature hit the ground. Even from orbit, the explosion was visible as a bright flash that lit up the entire hemisphere. Shock waves rippled outward across the desert, creating circular patterns in the sand dunes. "We have to help," Sarah said immediately. Morrison shook his head. "Absolutely not. We're a mining operation, not a rescue team. Besides, draconians are dangerous even when they're friendly. An injured one could incinerate our entire crew without meaning to." Dr. Martinez pulled up data on his tablet. "Actually, Captain, this could be an unprecedented opportunity for scientific study. Draconians have biology unlike anything we've encountered. Their scales can withstand temperatures that would melt our best alloys. Their internal structure combines organic tissue with what appears to be living crystal matrices." "I don't care if it's made of solid gold," Morrison replied. "We're not equipped for first contact with a species that could sneeze and accidentally destroy our ship." Sarah studied the readouts on the nearby monitors. Energy signatures from the crash site were fluctuating wildly. Whatever had brought down the Draconian was seriously damaging its systems. She'd seen similar patterns when ship engines failed catastrophically. "Captain, look at these readings," she said. The creature's power systems are destabilizing. If they go critical, the explosion could damage our mining equipment on the surface. Morrison frowned as he examined the data. The mining complex represented a massive investment by the Trade Federation. Losing it would end all their careers and potentially bankrupt the entire operation. "How long do we have?" he asked. Sarah ran quick calculations in her head. Based on the decay rate, maybe 6 hours before critical failure. 8 at the outside. The observation deck fell silent except for the hum of life support systems. Sarah could see Morrison weighing the risks. Helping an injured Draconian was dangerous, but losing the mining operation would be devastating for everyone involved. "What would you need?" Morrison finally asked. Sarah had already been thinking about it. A shuttle with enhanced shielding, medical supplies adapted for large-scale injuries, and a team of 3 volunteers. Dr. Martinez for xenobiology expertise, Engineer Torres for technical support, and communications specialist Park in case we need to establish contact. Dr. Martinez straightened up. "I volunteer. This is exactly the kind of field work I trained for." Torres and Park quickly agreed when Morrison contacted them. Sarah wasn't surprised. The crew had been stuck on the station for 8 months with nothing but routine maintenance and mining surveys. The chance for real adventure was too tempting to pass up. 2 hours later, Sarah found herself strapped into the pilot's seat of the shuttle Endurance. She'd modified the craft's shields to handle higher energy levels and loaded the cargo bay with medical supplies designed for large-scale trauma. Dr. Martinez had worked furiously to adapt human medical equipment for a creature they'd never examined. The shuttle's engines hummed to life as they departed the station. Sarah guided them through the atmosphere, using the planet's magnetic field to reduce their heat signature. She didn't know if Draconians had defensive systems that might activate automatically, but she wasn't taking chances. Kepler 442b's surface was harsh and unforgiving. Massive sand dunes stretched to the horizon, broken by rocky outcroppings and deep ravines. The crash site was easy to spot from the air. A crater nearly a kilometer wide marked where the Draconian had impacted. The sand around the edges had been fused into glass by the intense heat. "My God," Torres whispered as they circled the impact zone. "How is anything still alive after that?" The Draconian lay partially buried in the center of the crater. Its body was easily 200 meters long, with wings that spanned even wider. Golden scales covered most of its form, though many were cracked or missing entirely. Green ichor leaked from wounds along its flanks, pooling in the crystallized sand. Sarah brought the shuttle down carefully, landing on solid rock away from the crater's edge. The energy readings were stronger here, making her instruments flicker with interference. Whatever power source the Draconian used, it was unlike anything human technology had encountered. "Atmospheric readings show high levels of exotic particles," Dr. Martinez reported. "We'll need full environmental suits." The team suited up quickly, checking each other's seals before opening the airlock. Sarah carried her engineering toolkit along with emergency repair equipment. If the Draconian systems were failing, she might be able to help stabilize them. Walking across the crater's rim felt like approaching a sleeping volcano. The ground was still warm from the impact, and strange energy patterns danced across their suit displays. Sarah had worked in dangerous environments before, but nothing quite like this. As they got closer, the Draconian's true size became apparent. Its head alone was larger than their shuttle, with intelligent golden eyes that tracked their movement. When it spotted them, its massive head lifted slightly from the ground. "It's conscious," Park said, his voice tight with nervousness. Dr. Martinez was scanning frantically with his instruments. Massive trauma to the thoracic cavity, probable damage to internal organs, and significant energy depletion. But the vital signs are still strong. The Draconian's mouth opened, revealing teeth like crystal spears. Sarah tensed, ready to run, if necessary. Instead of roaring, the creature spoke in a voice like distant thunder. The words were incomprehensible, but Park was already working to establish translation protocols. His equipment struggled with the alien language patterns, producing fragments that made little sense. Offspring danger, must protect. Sarah felt her heart skip a beat. Did it say offspring? The translation became clearer as Park's software adapted to the speech patterns. Young one. Hidden predators coming, please. Sarah looked around the crater, but saw nothing except sand and rock. Where's the offspring? The Draconian's great head turned slightly, indicating a section of its body near the impact zone. Sarah followed its gaze and spotted something that made her stomach drop. Part of the creature's wing was folded protectively around a much smaller form. There's something under its wing, she called to the others. Dr. Martinez scanned the area with his instruments. Life signs confirmed. Much smaller, but similar energy patterns to the adult. It's injured but alive. The Draconian spoke again, its voice growing weaker. The translation came through more clearly now. Hatchling trapped, cannot move, dying, please help. Sarah felt a surge of determination. She'd always been drawn to fixing things, whether they were machines or living beings. We're going to help, she called up to the massive creature. She hoped it could understand their translation software. The Draconian's eyes focused on her with surprising intensity. Human, you understand, grateful, but dangerous other hunters come. What hunters? Sarah asked. The answer chilled her to the bone. Void stalkers follow wounded, consume life force. Soon they arrive. Torres grabbed Sarah's arm. We need to go. Now. If there's something worse than an injured dragon coming, we should not be here. But Sarah was already moving toward the trapped hatchling. She could see it now, no bigger than a large dog, its golden scales dim with pain. One wing was twisted at an impossible angle, and green fluid leaked from wounds across its small body. Sarah, what are you doing? Dr. Martinez called. My job, she replied, kneeling beside the hatchling. I'm an engineer. I fix things. The baby Draconian looked up at her with eyes identical to its parents, filled with pain and fear. Sarah gently touched its head, surprised by how warm the scales felt through her gloves. It's okay, little one. We're going to get you out of here. The hatchling's injuries were severe, but not fatal with proper treatment. Sarah carefully examined the trapped wing, while Dr. Martinez scanned for internal damage. The parent Draconian watched every move, its breathing growing more labored with each passing minute. The wing is broken, but can be stabilized, Dr. Martinez reported. Internal injuries are minimal. The parent shielded it from the worst of the impact. Sarah nodded, already formulating a plan. The hatchling was small enough to transport, but moving it would require extreme care. Dragon bones were apparently much denser than human bones, making the creature heavier than it looked. A new sound echoed across the desert, like metal scraping against stone. Sarah looked up to see dark shapes moving across the horizon. They moved wrong, somehow like shadows given physical form. Void stalkers, the adult Draconian said, its voice filled with ancient fear. They consume life, energy, grow stronger, must protect young. The creatures were getting closer, their forms shifting and changing as they moved. Sarah couldn't make out details, but her instincts screamed danger. Whatever these things were, they were predators that even Draconians feared. We need to evacuate immediately, Torres said. Get the hatchling and go. Sarah looked between the injured baby and its dying parent. The adult was too large to move, too badly injured to survive. But it had asked them to save its young. She made her decision. Martinez, prepare the medical bay for a patient unlike anything you've ever treated. Torres, help me rig a transport stretcher. Park, contact the station and tell them to prepare for emergency departure. The team worked with practiced efficiency, rigging a gravity lift to carefully move the hatchling. Sarah made sure every movement was gentle, talking softly to the young Draconian as they worked. Just hang on, little one. We're going to take care of you. The Void Stalkers were only a few kilometers away now. Sarah could see them more clearly and immediately wished she couldn't. They looked like living shadows, constantly shifting between forms. Sometimes they seemed almost human, other times completely alien. The only constant was the sense of wrongness they projected. They feed on life energy, the adult draconian explained as they loaded its offspring into the shuttle. Take young one far from here. Raise it well. It carries our ancient knowledge. Sarah felt tears in her eyes. She wanted to help the parent too, but there was simply no way. I promise we'll take care of your child. The draconian's great head nodded slightly. You have compassionate heart. Rare among species. Young one will remember, will repay kindness. The Void Stalkers were close enough now that Sarah could hear their approach. The sound was like nails on a chalkboard mixed with whispers in unknown languages. Every instinct told her to run. Go now, the parent draconian commanded. I will delay them. Buy you time. Promise me young one will learn of its heritage. Sarah nodded as she ran for the shuttle. I promise. The Endurance lifted off just as the Void Stalkers reached the crater's edge. Sarah pushed the engines to their maximum, climbing rapidly toward orbit. In the rear camera, she could see flashes of light from the impact site as the adult draconian made its last stand. The hatchling lay unconscious in the medical bay, its breathing shallow but steady. Dr. Martinez worked frantically to stabilize its condition while Torres monitored their escape trajectory. The Void Stalkers hadn't followed them into the atmosphere, apparently content with their fallen prey. Station, this is Endurance, Park reported. We're returning with a survivor. Prepare medical bay and notify Captain Morrison we need to discuss departure protocols immediately. Sarah's hands shook as she piloted the shuttle home. She'd save the hatchling, but at what cost? An ancient, intelligent being had died to protect its child, trusting complete strangers to raise it properly. The weight of that responsibility was overwhelming. What have we gotten ourselves into? Torres asked quietly. Sarah looked back at the unconscious hatchling. I don't know, but we're going to figure it out. The mining station grew larger in their viewport as they approached. Sarah knew their lives had just changed forever. They now had custody of what might be the last survivor of an ancient alien species, with no idea how to care for it or what it might become. But one thing was certain. She would keep her promise to its dying parent. The hatchling would learn its heritage and grow strong. And maybe someday it would understand why a human engineer had risked everything to save its life. The docking bay doors opened to receive them, but Sarah knew this was just the beginning of their real adventure. The medical bay buzzed with activity as Sarah watched Dr. Martinez work on the dragon hatchling. 3 days had passed since the rescue, and the young creature was finally stable enough for detailed examination. Its wing had been carefully set and immobilized, while the other wounds were healing faster than any human injury would. Remarkable, Martinez muttered, adjusting his scanner settings. Its cellular structure is unlike anything in our databases. The scales aren't just armor. They're living crystal matrices that conduct and store energy. And look at this. Sarah leaned over his shoulder as he pointed to the display. What am I looking at? It's brain patterns. There's activity in regions that don't match any known species. The complexity is incredible, almost like it's processing multiple streams of consciousness simultaneously. The hatchling stirred on the examination table, its golden eyes opening to focus on Sarah. Every time it woke up, it seemed to seek her out first. She'd been spending most of her free time in the medical bay, partly to monitor its condition and partly because she felt responsible for its well-being. Hey there, little one, she said softly, reaching out to gently stroke its head. The scales felt warm and smooth, with tiny vibrations that seemed to respond to her touch. Captain Morrison entered the medical bay, his face grim. Sarah, we need to talk. There's been a development. Sarah followed him to his office, leaving Martinez to continue his examinations. Morrison's office was utilitarian like the rest of the station, but he'd managed to make it feel welcoming with pictures from Earth and a collection of old books. The Trade Federation contacted us this morning. Morrison began without preamble. They want the creature transferred to their research facility on Proxima Station. Sarah's blood ran cold. Absolutely not. Morrison held up his hand. I knew you'd react this way, but listen to the full situation. The Federation classifies draconians as a Class 5 species, which means any contact requires immediate notification and quarantine protocols. They're sending a containment team. Containment team? Sarah stood up so quickly her chair scraped against the floor. They want to lock it up like some kind of specimen. Sarah, I understand your feelings, but we're in over our heads here. The Federation has resources we don't. Specialized facilities, xenobiologists who've studied similar species. Similar species? Sarah interrupted. Martinez just told me its biology is completely unique. There are no similar species. Morrison pulled up a holographic display showing the Trade Federation's message. They're also concerned about security. Draconians are known to have advanced technology. If this hatchling grows up and decides we're a threat, Sarah shook her head. You didn't see what I saw down there, Captain. The parent trusted us with its most precious possession. It could have let us die when those void stalkers arrived, but it chose to protect us instead. Maybe, Morrison replied. Or maybe it was just using us to save its offspring. We can't know its real motivations. Sarah stared at the Federation message, feeling anger build in her chest. When do they arrive? 48 hours. I am sorry, Sada. The decision is out of my hands. Sarah left the office and headed straight back to the medical bay. She found Martinez making notes while the hatchling slept peacefully under the healing lamps. How quickly could it be moved if necessary? She asked. Martinez looked up in surprise. Moved? It shouldn't be moved for at least another week. The wing needs time to heal properly, and I'm still not sure about its dietary requirements. The Federation wants to take it to Proxima Station. Martinez's face darkened. Those bureaucrats? They'll treat it like a lab rat. All they care about is what they can learn from dissection and experimentation. That's not going to happen, Sarah said firmly. What are you thinking? Sarah looked around the medical bay, her mind racing through possibilities. We need to contact someone who actually knows about draconians. The Federation might classify them as Class 5, but they've been in space for millions of years. They must have allies, friends, someone who would care about an orphan hatchling. Martinez nodded slowly. There are rumors about neutral space stations where different species meet peacefully. Black market information brokers, independent traders who work outside Federation jurisdiction. Can you reach any of them? Maybe. There's an information dealer on Titan Station who owes me a favor for my academic days. If anyone knows how to contact Draconian representatives, it would be her. Sarah felt hope for the first time since Morrison's announcement. Do it. And Martinez? Keep this between us for now. The next 24 hours passed agonizingly slowly. Sarah went through the motions of her regular duties, fixing failing systems and maintaining equipment, but her mind was constantly on the hatchling. Every time she checked on it, the young dragon seemed a little stronger, a little more alert. Martinez's contact on Titan Station proved valuable. Dr. Kess, the Zalaria information broker, had connections throughout the neutral zones. More importantly, she knew about a draconian enclave in the Andromeda Rift, a region of space where older species maintained their own territories. The problem, Martinez explained as they met privately in Storage Bay 7, is getting there. The rift is 3 months away at best speed, and we'd have to cross through Federation space to reach the neutral zone. Sarah had been thinking about that problem all day. What if we don't try to leave in a ship? What do you mean? The mining station has emergency escape pods designed for long-term survival. If we could modify one with better life support and navigation systems. Martinez's eyes widened as he understood her plan. You want to steal an escape pod and make a run for neutral space. I want to keep a promise I made to a dying parent, Sarah corrected. The Federation will never let that hatchling reach its own people. This might be the only chance. They spent the next several hours planning in secret. Torres and Park had to be brought into the conspiracy, partly for their expertise and partly because they'd been part of the original rescue team. Both agreed immediately when Sarah explained the situation. The Federation's containment teams are notorious, Torres said grimly. They've got 3 species declared extinct because of their research programs. Park nodded. And if this hatchling really does carry ancient knowledge like its parents said, they'll want to extract every piece of information they can get. The plan was ambitious and dangerous. They would modify Escape Pod 7 with enhanced life support, better navigation computers, and supplies for a 3-month journey. The pod would launch during the shift change, when monitoring would be at its minimum. Sarah would pilot it alone with the hatchling, while the others created false records to cover their escape. Why you? Martinez asked. I know more about its biology. Sarah looked through the observation window at the sleeping hatchling. Because I made the promise, and because someone needs to stay behind to make sure the cover story holds up. The modifications took 18 hours of careful work. Sarah used her engineering access codes to requisition supplies and equipment, making it look like routine maintenance on the pod systems. Torres helped her install a modified navigation computer that could reach the rift, while Park prepared false flight plans that would disguise their real destination. Dr. Martinez worked frantically to prepare portable medical equipment for the hatchling's needs during the journey. He'd finally figured out its dietary requirements, a complex mixture of minerals and energy supplements that seemed to nourish both its organic and crystalline components. It's growing faster than I expected, Martinez reported as they made final preparations. The wing is almost completely healed, and its brain activity is becoming more complex. I think it's starting to understand our language. Sarah had noticed that too. The hatchling's eyes followed conversations now, and it seemed to respond to its name. She'd started calling it Star, partly because of its golden coloring and partly because it had fallen from the sky. The Federation containment team arrived 6 hours ahead of schedule. Sarah was in the escape pod, making final adjustments when Park's urgent message came through her communicator. Federation ship just docked. They're demanding immediate transfer of the specimen. Sarah's heart raced as she sealed the pod's systems and ran toward the medical bay. She found the hatchling awake and agitated, its golden eyes wide with what looked like fear. It seemed to sense the tension in the station. It's okay, Star, she whispered, gently lifting the young dragon into the transport carrier Martinez had prepared. We're going home. The hatchling settled down at her touch, tucking its head against her arm. Sarah felt her resolve strengthen. Whatever happened next, she would not let the Federation take this innocent creature. Getting to the escape pod bay required passing through 3 security checkpoints. Sarah used her engineering credentials and the cover story they'd prepared. The hatchling needed to be moved to a more specialized medical facility within the station. The security guards barely glanced at her authorization codes. The escape pod had been modified beyond recognition. What had been designed for emergency survival was now a small but capable spacecraft. Enhanced life support could sustain 2 occupants for 4 months, while the upgraded navigation system could calculate jumps through hyperspace. Sarah strapped the hatchling's carrier into the acceleration couch next to the pilot's seat. Star looked around with curious eyes, taking in their new environment. Its intelligence was clearly developing rapidly. Attention, all station personnel. Captain Morrison's voice echoed through the ship's communication system. We're conducting a scheduled drill of escape pod systems. Please maintain normal operations. Sarah smiled grimly. Morrison might not approve of their plan, but he wasn't going to stop it either. The pod systems came online smoothly, all modifications functioning perfectly. Pod 7, you are cleared for launch. Torres' voice came through the communication system. Safe travels. The pod detached from the station with barely a vibration. Sarah engaged the engines and headed for the outer system, where she could safely activate the hyperspace drive without detection. Behind them, the mining station grew smaller until it was just another star in the endless void. Star chirped softly from its carrier, a sound Sarah hadn't heard before. When she looked over, she found the hatchling watching the stars through the viewport with what could only be described as wonder. Pretty, aren't they? Sarah said. We're going to see a lot more before this journey is over. The hyperspace jump was smooth, sending them toward the first waypoint on their 3-month journey. Sarah had never piloted anything more complex than a shuttle, but the pod systems were intuitive and well-designed. As the hours passed, Star became more active and interactive. The young dragon seemed fascinated by the pod's computers, watching intently as Sarah made navigation calculations. When she tried to explain what she was doing, Star's head tilted with obvious attention. "You're a smart little one, aren't you?" Sarah said during their second day of travel. "Your parents said you carry ancient knowledge. I wonder what that means." Star made a series of soft chirping sounds, almost like it was trying to communicate. Sarah wished Martinez was there to record the sounds for analysis. She made notes in the ship's log, documenting everything she observed about the hatchling's behavior and development. 3 days into the journey, something extraordinary happened. Sarah was running diagnostics on the life support systems when she heard Star make a new sound. It wasn't quite a chirp or a growl, but something closer to speech. "Sa-ha." Sarah spun around so fast she nearly fell out of her chair. Star was looking directly at her, golden eyes bright with intelligence. "Did you just say my name?" "Sarah," Star repeated, more clearly this time. "Friend, Sarah." Sarah felt tears of joy streaming down her face. "Yes, Star, I'm your friend. We're going to take care of each other." Over the following days, Star's vocabulary grew rapidly. The young dragon learned words for basic concepts first: food, water, sleep, happy, safe. But its understanding seemed to go deeper than simple vocabulary. Star grasped complex ideas like trust, promise, and hope. "Where go?" Star asked during their second week of travel. Sarah showed it their route on the navigation display. "We're going to find your people. Other dragons who will help you learn about your heritage." Star studied the star chart with remarkable intensity. "Long way dangerous?" "Maybe," Sarah admitted. "But your parent trusted me to keep you safe. I won't break that promise." Star moved closer to Sarah, pressing its warm head against her arm. Sarah good, like parent, protects Star. The simple statement filled Sarah with profound responsibility and love. She was no longer just rescuing an alien creature. She was raising a child. As they traveled deeper into neutral space, Star's abilities continued to develop at an amazing rate. The young dragon learned to help with simple ship maintenance, its crystalline scales generating small amounts of energy that could power diagnostic tools. More remarkably, it seemed to have an intuitive understanding of the ship's systems that went beyond anything Sarah could teach. "How did you know the navigation computer needed recalibration?" Sarah asked after Star had pointed out a problem she'd missed. Star tilted its head thoughtfully. "Feel wrong. Energy patterns not smooth. Parent teach before words." Sarah realized Star was accessing inherited knowledge, genetic memories passed down from its ancestors. The ancient knowledge its parent had mentioned wasn't just information, but instinctive understanding of technology and energy that had been refined over millions of years. They were halfway to their destination when the pirates found them. Sarah was sleeping when the proximity alarms woke her. 3 ships had dropped out of hyperspace nearby, their weapons systems already charging. The lead vessel was broadcasting demands for immediate surrender. "This is Captain Vex of the Free Company. Prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in your destruction." Sarah's hands flew over the controls, trying to plot an escape route. The escape pod was fast, but not heavily armed. Against 3 pirate ships, they had no chance in a direct fight. "Sarah scared?" Star asked, sensing her distress. "A little," Sarah admitted. "Bad people want to hurt us." Star's golden eyes flashed with something Sarah had never seen before: anger. "No hurt, Sarah," Star growled, its voice deeper than usual. "Star, protect friend." The hatchling moved to the pod's main control panel, placing its claws on the energy distribution network. Sarah watched in amazement as Star's scales began to glow with internal light. "What are you doing?" "Remember parent lessons," Star said, its voice filled with ancient authority that belied its young age. "Draconians protect those who show kindness." Power flowed through the pod systems like nothing Sarah had ever experienced. Weapons that shouldn't have existed came online, shields strengthened beyond their design limits, and the engines surged with incredible energy. The pirates' confident demands suddenly turned to confusion and fear as their sensors registered the pod's transformed capabilities. "What the hell is that thing?" Captain Vex shouted over the communication channel. "It's off the scales." Star spoke again, but this time in its parents' language, the words carrying harmonics that made the pod's hull vibrate. The translation came through the computer. "Leave now, or face the consequences." The pirate ships hesitated, then began to retreat. They'd come expecting easy prey and found something that registered on their sensors as more dangerous than a Federation battleship. As the pirates disappeared into hyperspace, Star's scales dimmed back to normal. The young dragon looked exhausted but pleased with itself. "Good job, Star," Sarah said, her voice filled with awe. "You saved us." Star curled up next to the pilot's seat, yawning widely. "Protect family, Dragon Way." Sarah realized that somewhere during their journey, she and Star had become family. The bond between them was deeper than species, stronger than the differences in their biology or origins. They belonged together. The rest of the journey passed peacefully. Sarah taught Star about human culture and history, while the young dragon shared fragments of ancient draconian knowledge. They learned each other's languages, customs, and dreams. As they approached the Andromeda Rift, Sarah felt both excitement and sadness. Star would finally meet its own people, but their incredible journey together was coming to an end. "Will you stay with Star?" the dragon asked as they prepared for the final hyperspace jump. Sarah looked into those intelligent golden eyes and made another promise she intended to keep. "As long as you want me to." The Andromeda Rift stretched before them like a cosmic garden. Nebulae in brilliant colors painted space with purple clouds and golden streams of stellar matter. Ancient space stations drifted between the stars, their designs unlike anything in human space. Some looked grown rather than built, with organic curves and crystalline extensions that caught and reflected starlight. Sarah piloted their escape pod through the designated approach corridor, following navigation beacons that transmitted in dozens of different languages. Star pressed against the viewport, golden eyes wide with wonder at seeing the home of its people for the first time. "So beautiful," Star whispered. "Feel familiar, like dreams from parent memories." Sarah understood. The genetic knowledge Star carried included not just facts and abilities, but emotional connections to draconian culture and history. Seeing the rift was awakening memories the young dragon didn't even know it possessed. "Incoming vessel, identify yourself and state your business in the sanctuary." A voice came through their communication system. The speaker was clearly not human, with harmonics that suggested crystalline vocal cords. "This is Sarah Chun aboard the vessel Promise," Sarah replied, using the name she'd given their modified escape pod. "I'm carrying a draconian hatchling seeking asylum among its people." There was a long pause before the response came. "Impossible. All draconian hatchlings are accounted for within the sanctuary. You are either mistaken or attempting deception." Star moved to the communication panel, placing one claw on the transmitter. "I am Star of the Golden Scale, child of Theron the Ancient, survivor of the Void Stalker attack on Kepler 442b. I carry the memories of my lineage and seek recognition among the Council of Elders." The formal speech pattern was completely different from Star's usual casual manner. Sarah realized the young dragon was accessing deeper levels of inherited knowledge, speaking with the authority of its ancestral line. Another long pause, then, "Please maintain position. An escort is being dispatched to guide you to the central sanctuary. Do not deviate from their instructions." 3 ships approached within minutes, their sleek forms clearly draconian in origin. They looked like they had been carved from single pieces of crystal, with smooth surfaces that shifted color as they moved. The escorts took position around their pod, guiding them toward the largest station in the rift. The central sanctuary was enormous, easily 10 kilometers across, with multiple docking bays and residential sections. Gardens were visible through transparent sections, filled with plants from dozens of different worlds. Sarah had never imagined that space stations could be so beautiful. Their escort guided them to a small docking bay where atmospheric pressure equalized quickly. As the bay doors opened, Sarah saw figures waiting for them. 3 adult draconians stood in the reception area, their massive forms somehow elegant despite their size. "Stay close to me," Sarah whispered to Star as they exited the pod. The largest of the waiting draconians stepped forward, its golden scales marked with intricate patterns that indicated age and status. "I am Elder Kirith, speaker for the council. You claim to carry the offspring of Theron the Ancient." Star emerged from behind Sarah, standing tall despite being dwarfed by the adult dragons. "I am that offspring, honored elder. My parent died, defending me from the Voidstalkers. This human, Sarah Chun, rescued me and brought me home." Elder Kirith's great head lowered to examine Star more closely. The young dragon submitted to the inspection calmly, allowing the elder to study its scales and features. "The bloodline markers are authentic," Kirith rumbled after several minutes. "But this is troubling news. Theron was conducting deep space surveys in the Outer Rim. If the Voidstalkers have returned to that region, they consumed my parents' life force," Star said quietly. "I felt it happen through our bond." The pain was immense. The 3 elders exchanged glances filled with meanings Sarah couldn't interpret. She sensed ancient concerns being awakened, threats that predated human civilization. "The council must hear this testimony," another elder said. "Young Star will be brought before them for formal recognition and debriefing." "What about Sarah?" Star asked quickly. "She saved my life. She deserves honor for her courage and compassion." Elder Kirith turned his massive gaze on Sarah. Being studied by an ancient dragon was intimidating, but Sarah stood her ground. She'd come too far to be dismissed now. "You are the human engineer who rescued our young?" Kirith asked. "I am," Sarah replied. "Star's parent asked me to protect its child and ensure it learned its heritage. I've done my best to honor that request." "At considerable personal risk," Kirith observed. "Our intelligence network reports that you fled Federation custody and crossed dangerous space to bring the hatchling home. Most humans would have turned such a valuable specimen over to their authorities." Sarah felt her temper flare at the word specimen. Star isn't a specimen. Star is a person with rights and dignity and incredible potential. Any decent being would have done the same thing. The elders exchanged another look, this time with what might have been approval. Kirith's massive head nodded slowly. "Perhaps, but very few would have succeeded. Your escape was noticed by many factions. The Trade Federation has placed a bounty on both your heads, and several criminal organizations are seeking the Dragon Child for their own purposes." Sarah's heart sank. She'd known there would be consequences for defying the Federation, but she hadn't considered that Star might still be in danger, even among its own people. "What does that mean for us?" she asked. "For now, you are both under the protection of the Sanctuary," Kirith replied. "But the Council must decide your ultimate fate." "Cool, there is much to discuss." The Central Sanctuary was even more impressive from inside. Corridors wide enough for adult dragons were lined with beautiful murals depicting draconian history. Gardens provided both beauty and practical life support, their alien plants converting waste products into clean air and water. Star walked beside Sarah, its head turning constantly to take in every detail. The young dragon's excitement was obvious, but Sarah could sense nervousness too. Meeting one's people for the first time was overwhelming for anyone, but especially for an orphan who had been raised by aliens. They were housed in guest quarters designed for mixed-species visitors. The rooms were spacious, with high ceilings and furniture that could accommodate beings of various sizes. Sarah had her own bedroom, while Star was given a larger space with heating elements designed for dragon physiology. "Are you okay?" Sarah asked as they settled in for their first night. Star was quiet for a long moment, curled up on the specialized bed the dragons had provided. "Feels strange it finally admitted. This is home, but also not home. Too big, too many strangers. Miss our small ship where everything was simple. Sarah understood completely. She missed their intimate journey too, the easy companionship they'd developed over 3 months of travel. Here, surrounded by Star's own species, she felt like an outsider. Change is always hard, she said gently. But you belong here, Star. These are your people. They understand you in ways I never could. But you understand my heart, Star replied, moving closer to Sarah. That is more important than blood. The next morning brought their formal appearance before the Council of Elders. The council chamber was magnificent, carved from living crystal that amplified and modulated sound. 7 ancient dragons sat in a circle, their combined ages spanning millennia of galactic history. Star testified about the attack on Kepler, 442b, and its parents' final battle with the Void Stalkers. The young dragon's account was detailed and emotional, clearly affecting the ancient elders. Sarah could see pain and anger in their expressions as they learned of Theron's death. This confirms our worst fears, Elder Kirith announced when Star finished. The Void Stalkers are moving into inhabited space again. We must warn the other species and prepare defenses. Another elder, her scales silver with extreme age, spoke up. What of the human who brought our young one home? Her actions show honor beyond what we expect from younger species. I propose adoption, Elder Kirith said, his words causing surprised murmurs throughout the chamber. Sarah Chun has demonstrated the highest qualities of kinship. She should be granted honorary draconian status and given a place among our people. Sarah felt her heart skip. Being adopted by an alien species hadn't been something she'd ever considered, but the honor was clear. Around the chamber, other elders were nodding their agreement. I'm deeply honored, Sarah said, standing to address the council. But I need to ask what this means for Star. Will we be allowed to stay together? If that is what both of you desire, Kirith replied. The hatchling will need time to learn our ways and access its inherited knowledge. Having a trusted companion during this transition would be beneficial. Star's golden eyes lit up with joy. Yes, Sarah stays with Star. We learn together. The formal adoption ceremony was held 3 days later. Sarah found herself wearing ceremonial robes that had been hastily modified for human anatomy, standing before an audience of dragons while ancient words were spoken in the language Star's parent had used. When Elder Kirith placed a small crystal pendant around her neck, Sarah felt something change. The crystal was warm against her skin, and she could suddenly sense emotional undertones in the dragon's speech that had been invisible before. You are now Sarah Chundrakonis, Kirith announced. Sister to Star, daughter of the sanctuary, guardian of ancient wisdom. Your courage has earned you a place among the oldest spacefaring species in the galaxy. The celebration that followed was unlike anything Sarah had ever experienced. Dragons who had seemed stern and formal revealed themselves to be warm and welcoming, sharing stories of their own adventures and asking detailed questions about human culture. Star was at the center of attention, being introduced to distant relatives and family friends who had known its parent. The young dragon handled the social requirements well, but Sarah could see it was getting overwhelmed by all the new information and relationships. Want to see something special? Sarah whispered during a brief, quiet moment. Star nodded gratefully, and Sarah led it away from the main celebration to an observation deck she'd discovered during their stay. The deck looked out over the rift's central nebula, where newborn stars were forming in clouds of cosmic dust. Better? Sarah asked, as they sat together watching the stellar nursery. Much, Star sighed, leaning against her. Love my people, but sometimes need quiet with family. Sarah smiled. Even with all the changes and new relationships, Star still considered her primary family. The thought filled her with warmth. What happens now? Sarah asked. The council said you need to access your inherited knowledge. What does that mean? Star was quiet for a moment, watching newborn stars ignite in the nebula. Deep memories from all ancestors knowledge of technologies, history, wisdom from millions of years. But dangerous process. Some hatchlings get lost in the past, forget who they are in present. Sarah felt a chill of fear. Is it mandatory? For safety of all dragons, yes. Ancient knowledge includes warnings about threats like void stalkers. Must learn to be guardian of secrets. Sarah understood. The Draconians had survived for millions of years by carefully managing their advanced knowledge, sharing it only with those who could handle the responsibility. Star would need to undergo this transformation to take its place as a true adult dragon. When? Sarah asked. Soon. Elder Kirith says preparation begins tomorrow. Star turned to look at Sarah with serious golden eyes. Will you stay? Process can take months, and sometimes hatchlings change. Become different person. Sarah reached out to stroke Star's head, feeling the warm crystal scales that had become so familiar. I'll be here for as long as you want me. That's what family does. The preparation for Star's knowledge integration was extensive and fascinating. Sarah was allowed to observe the early stages, learning about draconian biology and psychology from experts who had guided hundreds of young dragons through the process. Dr. Zethra, the sanctuary's chief developmental specialist, explained the procedure during one of their consultations. The inherited memories are encoded in crystalline structures within the brain. As hatchlings mature, these structures activate and integrate with conscious thought. But the process must be carefully guided to prevent psychological fragmentation. What can I do to help? Sarah asked. Your presence provides emotional stability, Zethra replied. Star trusts you completely, which creates an anchor point during the integration. Many hatchlings struggle because they feel isolated during the process. Star will have the comfort of knowing you're here. The actual integration began 2 weeks later in a special chamber deep within the sanctuary. Star lay on a crystalline platform while elder dragons channeled energy through focusing arrays that looked more like art than technology. Sarah sat nearby, maintaining physical contact with Star throughout the process. She could feel the young dragon's consciousness expanding, touching memories and knowledge that stretched back millions of years. Sometimes Star would whisper fragments of ancient languages or describe technologies that humanity wouldn't develop for centuries. See the first ships, Star murmured during the 3rd day of integration. When dragons learned to swim between stars, so beautiful, such hope for peaceful contact. The process wasn't without its dangers. On the 7th day, Star began speaking as if it were one of its ancestors, describing battles against the void stalkers from eons past. Sarah had to keep calling its name, reminding it of who it was in the present. I'm Star, the young dragon finally said, its voice shaky with exhaustion. I'm Star, and Sarah is my family, and we're safe in the sanctuary. That's right, Sarah said, relief flooding through her. You're you, and you're safe. The integration took 3 weeks total. When it was complete, Star had grown physically larger and moved with new confidence and grace. But more importantly, its personality remained unchanged. It was still the curious, affectionate dragon Sarah had raised during their journey. How do you feel? Sarah asked as they sat together in their quarters after the ceremony marking Star's successful integration. Different, Star admitted. Know so many things now. History of entire galaxy, technologies beyond imagination, secrets that could reshape civilization. But also know why ancestors were so careful about sharing knowledge. Sarah nodded. Power brings responsibility. Yes. And sometimes knowledge is burden. Now understand why Parent was so sad sometimes, even when we were happy together. Sarah felt a pang of sympathy. Star now carried the weight of millions of years of history, including all the tragedies and conflicts the Draconians had witnessed. It was a heavy responsibility for someone so young. But also understand why Parent trusted you, Star continued. Humans have something special, hope that doesn't die, determination to help even when dangerous. That's why ancestors want alliance with your species. Alliance? Sarah looked up in surprise. Star nodded, its golden eyes bright with inherited wisdom. Great challenges coming. Void stalkers returning. Other ancient threats stirring in deep space. Dragon strong, but not infinite. Need allies who share our values. Council has been watching humanity, waiting for right moment. Sarah felt the weight of implications. If the Draconians wanted to ally with humanity, it could change the course of galactic history. But it would also bring enormous challenges and responsibilities. What does that mean for us? She asked. Star smiled, an expression that looked endearing despite its draconic features. Means we go home, back to human space, but as ambassadors. Build understanding between species. Show that cooperation possible. Sarah's heart leaped. She'd been wondering if she would ever see Earth again, ever reunite with her human friends and colleagues. The possibility of returning home while maintaining her relationship with Star was more than she'd dared hope. The Council has approved this mission, she asked. Approved and requested, Star confirmed. You are perfect choice for first human ambassador to Draconian Sanctuary. And I am perfect choice for first dragon ambassador to human space. We are bridge between worlds. 3 months later, Sarah found herself aboard a Draconian diplomatic vessel approaching Earth's outer sensor perimeter. Star had grown considerably during their time in the sanctuary, now nearly the size of a large horse, but still maintained the playful personality she'd come to love. The ship itself was a marvel of biotechnology, grown rather than built, with living systems that responded to the crew's needs instinctively. Sarah had spent weeks learning to interface with the organic computers, finding them more intuitive than human technology in many ways. Nervous? Star asked as Earth grew larger in the viewport. Terrified, Sarah admitted. We're about to change the course of human history. No pressure at all. Star moved closer, offering comfort the way it had during their escape pod journey. Despite all its new knowledge and abilities, it was still the same loving creature Sarah had rescued from the desert. Remember what parents said about compassionate hearts, Star reminded her. We bring gift of friendship between species. Most humans will understand value of this. Sarah hoped that was true. The initial contact protocols had been carefully negotiated between the Draconian Council and selected human diplomats who had been secretly prepared for this moment. But there was no guaranteeing how humanity as a whole would react to the revelation that they were not alone in the universe. Earth Control. This is the DSV Harmony requesting approach clearance for historic first contact mission, the ship's communication officer announced. DSV Harmony, you are cleared for approach to Luna Station. Welcome to Earth space. The whole world is watching. Sarah felt tears of joy as she saw Earth rising before them, blue and green and beautiful in the starlight. She was coming home, but not as the same person who had left. She was returning as something unprecedented, a human who had been adopted by dragons, carrying the hopes of 2 species for peaceful cooperation. Think they'll like me? Star asked, pressing against the viewport to get a better view of Earth. Sarah smiled, remembering the frightened, injured hatchling she'd found in the desert crater. That small creature had grown into a bridge between worlds, a symbol of hope for peaceful contact between species separated by millions of years of evolution. They're going to love you, Sarah said with absolute certainty. Just like I do. As their ship descended toward Luna Station, Sarah reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them here. What had started as a routine rescue mission had become the foundation for a new era of galactic cooperation. Star's parent had been right to trust her with its most precious possession. The hatchling had indeed learned its heritage and grown strong, but more importantly, it had learned to love across the boundaries of species and culture. The future stretched before them, full of challenges and possibilities. There would be obstacles to overcome, misunderstandings to resolve, and prejudices to confront. But Sarah faced that future with confidence, knowing that she and Star would meet every challenge together. After all, they were family, and family always protects each other, no matter how vast the universe becomes.